There is a moment in a man's life that no one prepares him for, not in school, not in marriage, not in the years when he was building, grinding, sacrificing, and carrying everyone else on his back. It arrives quietly after 60, sometimes after retirement, sometimes after divorce, sometimes after loss, sometimes after the children no longer need him, and it feels like standing in an empty house after the noise has faded. For many men, this moment feels like an ending. But what if it is not an ending at all? What if it is the beginning of the most powerful phase of a man's life? The advantages of being a single senior man are not advertised. They are not celebrated in movies. They are not spoken about in social circles obsessed with youth. Yet hidden inside this stage is a level of freedom, clarity, and self-possession that most men over 60 never fully discover, not because it is not there, but because no one ever taught them how to see it. For decades, a man's identity was tied to provision and protection. He was valued for what he built, what he earned, what he sacrificed. His worth was measured by the weight he could carry. In his 20s and 30s, he chased stability. In his 40s and 50s, he defended it. By the time he reached 60, he had played the game long enough to know its rules. And that is precisely where the hidden power begins. Because when you are no longer trying to impress anyone, when you are no longer racing against time to prove yourself, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see. A single senior man has something younger men crave but rarely possess: perspective. He has seen trends rise and collapse. He has seen people change masks. He has watched loyalty tested and illusions shattered. He has loved, lost, succeeded, failed, and survived. Survival alone is power. And when a man stands alone at this age, not broken but aware, he becomes dangerous in the most disciplined sense of the word. Not dangerous in chaos, dangerous in clarity. One of the greatest advantages of being a single senior man is autonomy without apology. In youth, autonomy is often reactive. A young man wants freedom because he feels restricted. He wants space because he feels controlled. But at 60, freedom is not rebellion. It is ownership. You wake when you want. You eat what you want. You structure your days without negotiation. There is no subtle pressure to conform to someone else's emotional climate. There is no constant need to explain your silence, your hobbies, your solitude. Your time belongs to you in a way it may never have before. Time is the most valuable currency a man ever holds. In earlier decades, it was fragmented. Career demanded it. Marriage required it. Children consumed it. Society expected it. Now, in the quiet after 60, time returns. And this return is not small, it is monumental. Imagine having entire days shaped around your own curiosity. You can read deeply. You can train your body consistently. You can travel without compromise. You can reconnect with passions that were postponed for 40 years. The single senior man who understands this realizes he is not alone in emptiness. He is alone in possibility. Another hidden power lies in emotional independence. By 60, a man has felt enough to know that emotions come and go like weather. He has learned that intensity fades. He has seen that what once felt catastrophic eventually became memory. When single at this age, he is less likely to panic at loneliness. He understands the difference between solitude and abandonment. Solitude is chosen space. Abandonment is imposed rejection. A wise senior man reframes solitude as a laboratory for self-reflection. He sits with his thoughts instead of running from them. He evaluates his past not with regret, but with analysis. And in doing so, he extracts lessons that younger men are still blindly paying for. Financial clarity is another advantage rarely discussed. A single senior man often has fewer financial obligations. The house may be paid off. The children may be independent. The debts that once felt suffocating are either resolved or significantly reduced. This does not mean he is wealthy. It means he is strategic. He can spend intentionally. He can invest wisely. He can choose simplicity over status. The pressure to accumulate for appearances diminishes. The desire to accumulate for security strengthens. This shift is powerful because it removes the emotional volatility from money decisions. He is no longer buying to impress. He is preserving to protect. Health becomes a conscious project rather than an afterthought. Many men over 60 discover that being single allows them to prioritize their physical well-being without distraction. They can design routines tailored to their needs. They can control their diet without negotiation. They can sleep according to their body's rhythm. While younger men often sabotage their health in pursuit of social approval, the senior man who embraces his independence can treat his body like the asset it truly is. Strength training, long walks, swimming, mobility work, meditation. These are not luxuries. They are declarations of self-respect. There is also a psychological shift that occurs when a man no longer bases his identity on romantic validation. For decades, many men unconsciously tethered their self-worth to relationship status. Being married meant success. Being desired meant relevance. Being chosen meant value. But at 60, single and stable, a man has the opportunity to detach his identity from external approval. He learns that his value does not fluctuate with attention. It is anchored in character, discipline, and self-awareness. This realization is liberating. It allows him to interact with others without desperation. He does not chase. He observes. He does not beg for companionship. He evaluates it. Social dynamics change as well. Younger men often compete aggressively in social hierarchies. They measure success against peers. They feel threatened by comparison. A single senior man has outgrown much of that insecurity. He no longer needs to dominate conversations to feel powerful. His presence alone carries weight because it is backed by experience. He can speak calmly. He can remain silent confidently. In rooms filled with noise, the quiet, composed man often commands the most respect. This is not manipulation. It is maturity. The advantage of emotional detachment from chaos is profound. Modern relationships are often layered with unspoken expectations, digital distractions, and shifting norms. A senior man who stands single can observe these dynamics without being consumed by them. He sees patterns repeating. He notices how arguments escalate unnecessarily. He recognizes when people operate from unresolved wounds. And because he is not entangled, he can choose peace. Peace is underrated until you have lived long enough to know its absence. Travel becomes different at this stage. When single and financially stable, a man over 60 can travel not to escape but to explore. There is no need to curate experiences for social media validation. He can immerse himself in cultures, landscapes, and conversations without performance. The freedom to relocate, even temporarily, to spend months in a different environment, is a privilege that many never consider. Yet it exists. A single senior man can reinvent his surroundings without asking permission. Friendships also evolve. At this age, superficial connections fade. What remains are bonds forged in shared history. Being single allows a man to invest time in male camaraderie without guilt. He can deepen friendships that were once neglected due to marital responsibilities. He can mentor younger men. He can join communities built around shared interests. Golf clubs, hiking groups, reading circles, volunteering organizations. These spaces provide belonging without emotional turbulence. Another hidden advantage is the power of mentorship. A man who has navigated 6 decades holds knowledge that younger men desperately need. He understands mistakes from the inside. He has stories not of theory but of lived consequence. Being single often provides the time and emotional availability to mentor others. And in mentoring, he reclaims significance. Purpose is not lost with age. It shifts. Instead of building only for himself or his immediate family, he can build for legacy. Teaching, advising, guiding. This transforms solitude into contribution. The absence of constant compromise is not about selfishness. It is about clarity. In marriage or long-term partnership, compromise is necessary, but compromise over decades can blur personal identity. A single senior man has the rare chance to rediscover his preferences without negotiation. What music does he truly enjoy? What routines energize him? What philosophies resonate with him now, not 30 years ago? This rediscovery is almost like meeting oneself again. There is also resilience born from loss. Many single senior men arrived at this stage through divorce or widowhood. These experiences are painful, but surviving them builds an emotional fortitude that is unshakable. When you have endured heartbreak after decades of shared life, smaller setbacks lose their sting. You understand impermanence. You accept change. This acceptance reduces anxiety about the future. It fosters groundedness in the present. The cultural narrative often portrays older single men as lonely or forgotten, but this narrative is incomplete. Loneliness is not caused by singleness. It is caused by lack of connection, and connection can be cultivated intentionally. A senior man who actively engages with community, hobbies, and meaningful conversations rarely feels isolated. In fact, many report feeling less emotionally drained than they did in high-conflict relationships. Intellectual growth does not expire at 60. In many ways, it accelerates. With fewer distractions, a man can pursue education purely for curiosity. He can study philosophy, psychology, history, theology, economics. He can take online courses. He can write. He can reflect deeply. The mind, when challenged consistently, remains sharp. Being single removes the excuse of time scarcity. The only barrier becomes willingness. Spiritual development often intensifies in this stage. After witnessing the unpredictability of life, many men feel drawn to deeper questions. What truly matters? What legacy am I leaving? What values define me now? Solitude provides the silence necessary to confront these questions honestly. Whether through religion, meditation, or philosophical exploration, the single senior man can cultivate inner peace that is independent of relationship status. There is also a subtle but powerful shift in attraction dynamics. A man over 60 who is confident, healthy, and emotionally stable stands out, not because he is chasing attention, but because he is not. Detachment creates magnetism. When you do not need validation, your interactions become lighter, more authentic. You can choose companionship from abundance, not scarcity. And if you choose to remain single, it is from preference, not fear. Another advantage is reduced drama tolerance. By this stage, a man recognizes patterns quickly. He knows when conversations are unproductive. He knows when boundaries are being tested. Being single allows him to enforce standards without negotiation. He does not tolerate disrespect because he does not fear losing access to someone's presence. This emotional self-sufficiency is liberating. Routine stability becomes a source of strength rather than boredom. Many men discover joy in simple, structured days: morning coffee in silence, exercise, reading, meaningful phone calls, creative projects. The absence of relational volatility creates mental bandwidth. That bandwidth can be invested in craftsmanship, gardening, woodworking, writing memoirs, learning instruments. Simplicity becomes richness. There is also a profound sense of earned authority, not authority over others, but authority over oneself. At 60, you know your triggers, you know your weaknesses, you know the temptations that derail you. This self-knowledge reduces impulsivity. Decisions become slower, more deliberate. The single senior man can design a life aligned with his values without external pressure distorting them. Perhaps one of the most underrated advantages is peace of mind. Not because life is perfect, but because expectations are realistic. Youth is filled with idealism and urgency. Aging, when embraced, replaces urgency with acceptance. A single man over 60 who has made peace with his past often experiences a level of calm that younger men cannot fathom. He no longer feels he is running out of time to prove himself. He simply lives. The hidden power most men over 60 never discover is this: singleness at this stage is not a failure of desirability. It is an opportunity for sovereignty. It is the chance to live the remainder of life intentionally, without the compulsive need to perform roles. It is the freedom to define masculinity on your own terms, not as dominance, not as sacrifice, but as self-mastery. When a man internalizes this truth, his posture changes, his voice steadies, his decisions sharpen. He invests in relationships that enhance his peace and withdraws from those that disturb it. He understands that companionship is a complement to life, not its foundation. He knows that he can enjoy love without being dependent on it. In a society that idolizes youth and romantic partnership, the single senior man who embraces his independence becomes quietly revolutionary. He rejects the narrative that aging equals decline. He rejects the assumption that solitude equals loneliness. He demonstrates that fulfillment can be self-generated. And perhaps the greatest advantage of all is this: authenticity. After 60 years, there is little left to pretend about. Masks become heavy. Performance becomes exhausting. Being single removes the need for constant image management within a household dynamic. You can be flawed. You can be reflective. You can be evolving. And that authenticity radiates. The truth is simple but rarely spoken. The later decades of a man's life can be the most powerful if he understands that his worth is not tied to being needed, but to being grounded. The hidden power is not in isolation. It is in integration, integrating lessons, integrating losses, integrating strengths. So if you are a man over 60 standing in that quiet house, wondering whether this chapter is decline or design, understand this: you are not at the end of your story. You are at the phase where distractions fall away and essence remains. You have survived enough to know what matters. You have endured enough to know what does not. And in that knowledge lies a strength that most men never fully claim. Being a single senior man is not about rejecting companionship. It is about reclaiming sovereignty. It is about choosing peace over pressure, clarity over chaos, purpose over performance. It is about understanding that the final chapters of your life can be written with intention, not regret. The hidden power has always been there. Most men simply never pause long enough to see it.